have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that celebrates and in fact heavily endorses the days when throwing stuntmen through multiple panels of random glass and ramping a burning city bus through a wall of fire was thoroughly fantastic entertainment. If you ever needed to answer the question, what have immigrants ever done for us? Well, Canadian Richard Pepin and Syrian Joseph Merhi in 1989 formed PM Entertainment, which emerged as a gun-shooting, glass-smashing, car-tossing, explosion-making powerhouse of the straight-to-video scene and phenomenal film school for martial artists and actors looking for their big break in a leading role and for future film talent in the worlds of stunts, cinematography, and a lot more. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook posts, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email address, which is pmentpod@gmail.com. That is pmentpod@gmail.com. Our guests this week, for the last 19 years and counting, have consistently reviewed straight-to-video and VHS action gems on their blog, comeuppancereviews.net, and currently have 125 episodes of the Comeuppance Reviews podcast, which I strongly urge you all to go subscribe to, listen to, share, and shout from a mountain about to all and any who will listen. I'm guessing if you're up a mountain, it's mostly shepherds and weirdos who spend their time climbing mountains, but that's okay. They need love and podcasts too. Ladies, germs, and those that simply want to be referred to as Jeff, it's the Connecticut brothers who know more than you do about Frank Zagarino films. It's Ty and Brett Baja. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that incredibly kind and generous introduction. I appreciate that very much. This is Brett, by the way.
There's Ty. What an intro. I mean, thanks so much.
Of
You
course.
did your research on us. I think you know more about Comeuppance Reviews than we do at this point.
Yeah, I forgot about all that stuff. Thanks for remembering.
Did you know that next year was your 20th year of the blog?
Well,
Ty?
yes, I did know that because in 2006 it did start. Yes,
Yeah.
You went all the way back.
I did. Luckily, your blog has all the dates on the right-hand side, so I was able to go all the way back and figure out when it started. Yeah, well, that'll be an exciting year next year. You have to plan something big for your 20th anniversary.
I can only imagine what that would be. I mean, because Ty, we have what? It's about, is it 1,300 reviews or thereabouts?
Yeah.
A lot of reviews. So, I mean, we've uncovered a lot of stones in our time. So we'd have to come up with something big. But, you know, if you go to comeuppancereviews.net now, you'll see a review for Transformed, which is a gem. And I would recommend people check that out. But yeah, we've been doing this for a while, and we've been loving PM this whole time. So I think this is a good match.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. That's great.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So were you both always into action films from an early age? Like, I know you guys are brothers and stuff, so as you were growing up, were you just ransacking video stores in the 80s and 90s like mad people?
Well, I mean, I worked at a video store called Best Video, and then that's how I ransacked the action section. I looked up everything, every Frank Zagarino, every Richard Norton movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's a little different because I'm older. I'm older by 6 years. So for me, I mean, yes, I was going to video stores going back almost as far as I can remember, but I caught a lot of this on cable. So, some of my earliest memories of this were the pay channels, which for a time we were lucky enough to have. And I know PM, I sure had deals with, Cinemax, Showtime, the movie channel, probably HBO. So a lot of the stuff, and at least in my household, goes back to that. But yes, of course, I was ransacking every video store section I could find as well. So cable and video as well for me.
Excellent. And can you both remember when you first came across a PM Entertainment film, and did you put it together that PM was sort of a company putting out lots of these movies, or did you kind of realize that later?
Okay, so I remember, it's like, wait, I heard of a movie called The Sweeper. So it's like, wait, let me look into it. And it's like, I heard it was really great. So I got it for Best Video, and I watched it. I'm like, this movie is amazing. It's awesome. The best movie I've ever seen in my life. It's just like, there must be more. And then there was. And it just became like this mountain, like a mountain of rocks falling down. Like, whoa, all these great movies, Zero Tolerance and Last Man Standing and Recoil.
Yeah. So it did become sort of a symbol of quality. You see that PM logo and you go, okay, I mean, now we're in for something good. Because they seem to understand the action genre. So there's so many movies that you get the sense that maybe they didn't quite get it. PM got it. And when you saw that logo, you thought, okay, it's like a lot of times where people will collect records because they look for records on a certain label or something like that. When you see the PM logo, then that's almost always a good sign. So I would say that it's like a trademark of quality. But for me, I believe I was watching PM movies in the 90s, but didn't know necessarily. I mean, like I would see that logo, but it didn't 100% register. And then I think it only really came together for me once we started the website / blog, where it's like, okay, now it's more consistent. I'm starting to get it more. So for me, I think as I was watching them, but it was a nebulous kind of thing. It didn't 100% click until later. So while I was watching them, the PM logo is something I would see, but it just kind of didn't click until we started writing about these movies.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because you're so right about how PM Entertainment they just seem to get it. Because, we all watch a lot of, straight to video and VHS and straight to DVD and even straight to streaming kind of action films, all starring a lot of the same people that would kind of go through the PM Entertainment world. And you always leave the movie going, God, I wish PM had produced this, because they would have put in
I know that feeling.
two more car chases or one more explosion. You always feel, and I think Cynthia Rothrock has sort of said, the shame to her of a lot of her American movies that she did, the straight-to-video American films or Canadian films that she worked on, action was always the last thing they shot. It was always the thing that they spent the least amount of time on. And they would spend more time, lighting a drama scene or, shooting, establishing shots or whatever. Whereas PM Entertainment, I think I'm right, she's also said that they sort of got it. Like they understood that you spend more time on the action in kind of like the Hong Kong way. And although Hong Kong films spent 6 months making movies, PM Entertainment would spend 2 weeks making movies, but, have 16 days or something. But out of those 16 days, 12 of them were blowing shit up or punching people through glass,
Yeah, and if you didn't mention that, I was going to mention that too, about the similarity with the Hong Kong way of looking at things, which is concentrate on the action. PM might be a bit more quick and dirty than those, lengthy Hong Kong productions. But yeah, and because a lot of what we saw throughout the 90s, it sort of reflexively was like a feedback loop on itself, because the American movies started to resemble John Woo and the Hong Kong style of action more and more. And we see a little bit of that, I believe, in The Sweeper and some of the movies as the 90s rolled along, where, it's like a game of one-upsmanship, where it's like, okay, can we do a crazier stunt? Can we do a lengthier action sequence? And so the Hong Kong and American kind of symbiosis was coming to fruition, I think, around this time.
Yeah, and when you think of sort of the plane stunt at the end of The Sweeper, it's definitely reminiscent of something like Righting Wrongs or whatever,
Definitely.
Stuff.
Well, poor Ed Lauder for him. I mean,
yes. No, yeah. We'll get to Ed Lauder and his hilarious leather flying cap. He looks,
It's kind of loose fitting. It's kind of like flapping in the breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it looks like a leather tea cozy, if such a thing existed. Anyway, the last question: do either of you, and I don't care which order you go in, but do either of you have a definitive favorite PM, or at least a top three?
Probably for me, The Sweeper, Last Man Standing, and Zero Tolerance, and Recoil.
I would agree. I mean, without even trying to come up with something different, those would be mine as well. And when we always talk about the three R's, rage, riot, and recoil.
Yes.
They're the new reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, that's what they should be teaching kids in school.
Oh, 100%. Can you imagine how much better we would be as a people, not just as a nation, but as a people, if those three movies were taught in schools?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Exactly. You wheel out that TV, and here we go.
Yeah.
Right, kids. Bunch of kids in 7th grade, time to watch Riot, and they all go, yay!
Yay! Imagine how many kids would be running to school if that was the case. You get 3 hours of, tedious lectures, and then you get 2 hours of a PM entertainment film. I think that's how education should go going forward.
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's certainly in film schools they should be teaching this stuff.
Yeah,
and
I think that's definitely something I want to come around to with this show, is this idea that entertainment for entertainment's sake, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. That's what we've been saying for years and years. Like, is one of the things, if you're going to ask about The Sweeper, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's entertaining. There's never a moment in this movie, and lots of PM movies, the batting average is extremely high on this, where there's even a moment's worth of boredom. The movie is entertaining from start to finish.
Right.
And it's like, this is a piece of entertainment. And when we talk about, you're saying how they get it, that's what they get. They get that if you want people to rent and buy these movies, you have to entertain them. You can't let them flag for a second. You don't even want to get up to get a drink or whatever. You're glued to that seat, because what's Mark Goddard going to do next?
Right. Oh, you turn your eyes away from any PM entertainment film for more than 30 seconds and you've missed at least 3 stunts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're worried about what you're going to miss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
let's get to our film then. Thank you for your feedback and introduction.
Oh, you're welcome.
So on this episode, it is the C. Thomas Howell and tangentially Jeff Fahey starring vehicle The Sweeper, which was Howell's first PM entertainment film, but would most definitely not be his last. He would go on to star or appear in 4 more, including 2 that he directed, Pure Danger and The Big Fall, and then Avalanche and Hot Boys were the other 2. The Sweeper is from 1996. It's directed by the M of PM entertainment, Joseph Merhi, and written by Jacobson Hart, William Applegate Jr., and Heather Ferreira. And while Heather wouldn't write another film with PM, Jacobson Hart wrote too many to list here, and William Applegate wrote Skyscraper, Tiger Heart, The Silencers, Pure Danger, Riot, The Big Fall, and the TV series LA Heat. Quite the heavy hitters, both of them. The stunt coordinator for this one was the famous Spiro Razatos, who is one of the best in the biz and did the following films for PM: T-Force, Last Man Standing, Rage, The Sweeper, Pure Danger, Riot, Recoil, Running Red, No Tomorrow, and Hot Boys. But he had help this time from Michael J. Sarner, who is no slouch himself, having done stunts for PM Productions, Out for Blood, Ring of Fire 2, To Be the Best, Firepower, Steel Frontier, one of my personal favorites, and Rage. Before we review and chat about the film,
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
we have fighting, all the explosions, multiple car chases, a car and bike chase seemingly on a never-ending pier, cars flying through the air, cars driving through fire, cars on fire, cars exploding, vans exploding after a flaming man falls from a high building into it, a Bronco pulling a boat that flips and then explodes, a giant tanker explodes, people jumping through windows and falling several stories, a person falling from a plane, multiple people being hit by a vehicle, bike jumps, a man standing on a bike and jumping onto a car while in hot pursuit, a man on the roof of a car hanging off the side of a car jumps from pier with man jumping off it, multiple shootouts, blood squibs, blood spatter, foot chases, rooftop foot chases and jumps, 2 men jumping off a roof, one of whom gets hung by a rope several stories in midair, shower-based sex scene, sleazy saxophone in a strip club, wise old granny, daughter dancing to disco music, Ed Lauter in a silly leather flying cap, C. Thomas Howell in too many ludicrous leather items of clothing to even count, bad goatee beards, unnecessary disrespect of cooks, and many in the restaurant industry. Wow, what a phenomenal list. Doesn't that whet your appetite, ladies and germs, to go watch The Sweeper immediately? What do you think about the list? Is there anything I missed, guys?
Yeah, well, I say one House of Pain hat, please.
Oh, of course.
I actually have a thought about that. Is now the appropriate time to bring this up? Or?
Of course, always is
Okay.
an appropriate time to bring up random House of Pain hats.
Now, as we learn about the past of Mark Goddard, Mark Goddard is troubled, because of what happened to his parents and his sister, who was dancing to disco at the time. And I have a thought about that too, if I can remember to say it.
Well, should we do the plot and then we can
Sure.
get on to Brett's thoughts? Because I would love that. Let's just give people, Ty, if you want to give like a 3 or 4 sentence, just a very quick plot synopsis, and then Brett, go right into your Brett's thoughts.
Okay.
Okay?
Hey, Brett, you might have to run down the plot for me.
Well, I mean, because I did watch it this afternoon, maybe it's a little fresher in my mind.
Yeah,
but,
Go right ahead, Brett.
So it starts off with a young Mark Goddard, and his father is a cop, and he's a good cop, according to the wise old granny. But tragedy strikes when a group of armed assailants burst into their house and basically shoot up the family. But Mark manages to escape. Now, 15 years later, he's a COTE, COTE, as we say on the website. He's a cop on the edge. Now, he's also a good guy, but with a troubled past. He's also kind of a hothead. And he's approached by J.I., Justice Incorporated, who approaches any cop on the force with 9 confirmed kills to their name. And they kind of recruit him to start doing some dirty dealings. But then Mark Goddard kind of puts the pieces together, and he's never really happy at J.I., and he kind of has a feeling this might have something to do with the murder of his family. And then can Mark Goddard put it all together? You have to watch The Sweeper to find out.
Perfect.
Excellent, Brett. Yes, perfect. So go into Brett's thoughts, and then we'll go into some overall thoughts from all of us.
Okay. Just because Ty mentioned the House of Pain hat, I was thinking, yes, it was the 90s, and sure, we all love Jump and Jump Around and all the other House of Pain hit songs. But could there be more here? Because you know how Mark Goddard's a troubled guy. Maybe it's expressive of his inner life. Because his parents were murdered, Mark Goddard is always living in his own house of pain. So maybe the hat means more than just a pain.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And also about the disco dancing, I'm sure you're familiar with the other Jeff Fahey PM movie, The Underground.
Oh, of course. Yes, definitely.
So that also has Jeff Fahey. He's also PM and also involves a disgruntled disco band called the Las Vegas Disco Experience.
That's so fantastic.
Which we always mention on our podcast because I think it's so amazing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, could there be a connection to The Underground in the fact that the girl is kind of... No, I get that it's supposed to be 15 years before. I guess the movie was filmed in 1995.
It comes out in 96, so if it's meant to be 15... Is it meant to be 15 years before? Because, the son is fairly old. I mean, the son is like late teens.
Right, which is funny because if you remember in the beginning of the movie, he's talking, his father, played by Jeff Fahey, is talking about, oh, your son watches Sesame Street. That's why he gets beat up at school all the time. My son doesn't watch Sesame Street. It's like, why are you talking about Sesame Street? The kid's 17.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. But I mean, so I don't know how, does it say 15 years later? Did I miss that?
It does.
Okay. So if it's 15 years later, and this is 1996, then that would make it 1981.
Right, because it was disco. They were maybe trying to paint a picture of an earlier time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess disco ekes its way into the early 80s.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Well, because I wanted to make that connection to The Underground. And what's also interesting is that Jeff Fahey is credited as an associate producer on the film. And he's not in the movie very long, so this is almost like Jeff Fahey's Janet Leigh and Psycho moment.
Yes,
because you think that this movie has Jeff Fahey, he's going to be in it at least at least longer than this, but no, he's taken out of the proceedings, let's say, early on.
The only thing that scuppers your thoughts is that the Sweeper comes out, yes, a year before The Underground, but about 20 films before The Underground. Because, PM were making a film a month, basically.
Right. So I thought, maybe there's some kind of connection there. Let me see.
It would be more that he heard the disco on set and said, right, when I get to make my leading man movie with PM Entertainment, it has to feature a disco band. Maybe that was
disgruntled.
Yeah.
Revenge.
So, and we'd mentioned kind of a Hong Kong, John Woo connection. If you remember there's a shootout in like the drug den, which I think is very Hong Kong to my eyes. Now, I think the whole overall concept is pretty much taken from, I believe it's Magnum Force, the Dirty Harry sequel movie.
Yeah.
Which is about, kind of some like a underground cabal of road cops that are taking out the trash. I believe that could be the genesis for the overall concept of the Sweeper. But this includes a lot of things that Magnum Force doesn't have.
Right.
This innovated something in the action world because, that amazing scene where all those like gas canisters are coming out. I know, Ty, you want to talk about this. I don't want to hog the time, but
No. I just love the gas canister chase.
Yeah, because that's actually a combination car chase, shootout, an explosion kind of extravaganza on one. Like in a lot of other movies, there would be a shootout or a car chase.
But never PM Entertainment film. And also, it's a big trait of C. Thomas Howell PM Entertainment films is that it starts as one thing, moves to another thing. Like there's, for example, I think it's Pure Danger where there's like a shootout that moves to a foot chase that becomes a car chase and then ends with more shooting.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. And this kind of combines it all.
Yeah.
So it's almost like not meta exactly, but like more like a mega action where they're stacking action ideas on top of each other in a way that pretty much only PM did, or they only did it successfully. It's almost like they were competing not with other people, but with themselves to do a crazier stunt, a bigger thing. It's like, yes, and there are big explosions in this movie for sure. But what's cool about that scene we were just talking about, the gas canisters, it's all these kind of smaller ones, and you don't see that too often.
Well, what I think works really well in PM Entertainment films, and I think it's definitely a product, often more so of Spiro Razatos's stunt work than necessarily Cole S. McKay and some of the other stunt guys who work on PM Entertainment, is that there's always sort of a storyline to the action sequence. So it's never just and a car chase ensues. And there's some car chase or whatever. There's always sort of a B, C. So in this case, there's a car chase. Then there is, oh, look, the bad guy who's up ahead of C. Thomas Howell notices that there's a truck full of gas canisters. Then he's like, okay, well, he'll shoot those out and the gas canisters will fall down. And then he'll shoot at the gas canisters and they'll blow up. But then as it gets to the end of the gas canister chase, one happens to hit the front of C. Thomas Howell's car. And he's like, great, I will now give this back to the bad guy and, take out the bad guy using one of these gas. It has like, a lot of the stunt sequences and action set pieces have sort of a through line or a plot in a way that others sequences don't. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They often think of a way in and a way out. Tyler, while we're talking about this, what are your thoughts on the gas canister chase that you wanted to?
I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. I mean, like, as Brett knows, as most people know, I do love my blow-ups. I know it sounds kind of... and, like, it was just nonstop blow-ups. Like, I couldn't just believe my eyes how many cars were exploding at one time.
Right.
And it's just like...
and they're not just exploding; they're also crashing. It's like this total chaos at one point. It's like building on top of each other, so it's boom and crash and boom and crash.
It's vehicular mayhem.
It is.
Into which they are throwing multiple explosions.
And you have to wonder how they actually did some of this stuff. I mean, because you see someone driving a car, then you see a gigantic explosion. It's kind of like that rooftop chase, which is also very amazing, where the guy you mentioned before, he like, kind of hangs himself and then over this building, and you can see that the street below, and you can tell it's not a green screen. C. Thomas Howell's character of Goddard has to kind of basically climb up the guy to safety. And how did they do that? Like, if you think about the mechanics of how they actually did it, it's even more amazing.
Because it makes me think of those great stunts from Maniac Cop 2 from Spiro's.
From Spiro, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Well, and also, and I've mentioned this before, but what I think also works in PM's favor, and it certainly worked for Bill Lustig and the Maniac Cop franchise, is that the stunt crews came to the directors or came to the producers and sort of went, hey, we want this thing. We've always wanted to do this thing. Like the story Bill Lustig tells about Maniac Cop 2 is Spiro goes, I've never had the chance to do a high fall while on fire. Like, can we do a high fall while on fire? And I think Bill's like, you do it, I'll shoot it. You know what I mean? Like,
no, sure.
We'll fit it into the movie somehow, right? Yeah. And so I think a lot of these things, and I think this is where PM excels, is because unlike the Canon model, which from the sort of documentaries I've watched about Canon, while Golan and Globus were obviously big dreamers and had their sights set on, buying out cinemas and studios around the world and just growing and becoming like a major. A lot of the movies, they were just like, it's this poster, it's this star, it's this thing, now go make it. You know what I mean? Whereas PM Entertainment, and often that would fail because they hadn't budgeted it correctly, or the star didn't want to be involved in certain scenes or whatever it was, because they weren't really thinking about it. I think with PM Entertainment, they went, no, this is it. We have this budget. It's a few $100,000. From this budget, the old Roger Corman and then Joel Silver thing was, action every 7 to 10 minutes. PM was like, nope, action every 5 to 7 minutes, right? For predominantly their action films. I mean, there's some that don't follow that rule, but mostly it's big action at the beginning, big action at the end, and then throughout the movie, every kind of 5 minutes, have something happen, even if it's a loud shouting fight or a punch up or something, right?
Yeah. I was going to mention the yelling by C. Thomas Howell in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll get on to all through the movie, we are told that C. Thomas Howell is a good cop. The last thing C. Thomas Howell is in this movie is a good cop. He's one of the worst cops that has ever copped in the history of cinematic cops. I mean, it's not like he's, Dirty Harry. He's a little bit brusque, a little bit racist, but he always gets his man. He's just fucking useless from the get-go, but we'll get into this.
Well, it's because of his past trauma.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's all trauma.
Yeah, I also question just how good his dad was as being a cop as well, because they literally do that Steven Seagal thing of just being like, hey, there's some guys wearing pimp outfits. They must be bad guys. Let's go beat them up and arrest them. Like, there's no reason other than the fact that they're all stood around on a pier wearing like weirdly 70s pimp outfits. That's
true.
They're apparently bad guys. I'm just like, they're just standing around.
You got to watch out for the local pimp. And you can tell it's a pimp because of his hat.
Because of his hat. Yeah. It's all about the hat and the large medallion. But no, so what PM Entertainment did, I think, is a lot better, is they sort of said, look, we're going to stick to these budgets. They rarely inflated their budgets until sort of later on in their career when distributors, the foreign market, started to demand bigger names and bigger budgets. But early on, the foreign markets that they were playing to, which was mostly sort of Germany, China, and Japan mainly, they were fine as long as there was sort of martial arts happening, explosions happening, and car chases. And so PM kind of just went, fine, you get this much money, you have to do this many car chases, and, this many stunts and blah, 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 blah. Aside from that, do what you want. They kind of offered filmmakers, actors who then would become filmmakers, writers and so on. Not exactly carte blanche, but, they would have, it needs to include these elements, but outside of that, do whatever you want.
Well, and that's very Corman-esque.
It is. Yeah. It definitely follows the Corman school more than the Cannon school. because the canon then gets sort of waylaid by all this, each one of their films gets kind of compromised by all this stuff they're trying to do but not quite achieving, whereas PM is just like, look, it's simple, let's just keep it to the formula.
And that proved to be a gangbusters formula, because what some of those writers and directors came up with was gold.
It was fantastic.
They were right to give them, well, I wouldn't say carte blanche. How about carte blanche?
Carte blanche, right. And I think also we have to include, the stunt crews in that. Like, I feel like it was collaborative. The experience that I get from watching the movies, especially something like The Sweeper, is where I feel like there are set pieces in The Sweeper, outside of sort of the shootouts or whatever. I feel like there are set pieces in The Sweeper where the stunt crew has gone, hey, how about we do this? How about we do a car driving along a pier, hitting multiple tables and multiple people along the way? For some reason, this pier is going to have an inordinate amount of people who are selling popcorn and stuffed toys. Don't ask why, it just will. And because what we've always wanted to do is we've always wanted to do a man standing up on a motorbike and jumping over to a car. So that's what we want to do, and I think we can achieve it in this pier scene. I feel like that's what the stunt crews are bringing to it. They're bringing like a story into the set pieces. And
yes, and there's a story on top of that too, because I don't mean to interrupt, but
no,
in a lot of movies, like sometimes you can't even tell who's who. It's like who's shooting at who's that. We don't know why they're shooting at each other. We don't know why they're chasing each other. A lot of times, Ty and I will be watching movies. Who's that? We don't even know why this conflict is happening. In PM movies, and The Sweeper is a perfect example, who's chasing who and why. And it's very clear. And I think they did that on purpose because, especially for foreign markets, it might be easier for people if you speak German if it's very, very clear who is chasing who and why.
Right.
And I do think the drama in a lot of their movies, and including The Sweeper, is genuinely good. The relationship that Mark Goddard has with kind of like his estranged wife and his young tot son, because usually there's a tot somewhere in there, and it's genuinely good. And so if you care about the characters and you care about their plight and you care about Mark Goddard's past and his estranged wife, then you're really going to care if he has to dodge propane tanks on the highway, because you don't want him to get blown up, and who he's chasing, who's chasing him, and it all perfectly works.
Very often in PM films, it is not the action of the protagonist that defines the character, but the action of the people the protagonist is either working to protect or working to avenge. So in the case of The Sweeper, C. Thomas Howell as Mark Goddard is, as I've said before, a terrible fucking cop. He's a terrible fucking person. He's a terrible fucking cop. And almost all the deaths that happen in the movie are his fault especially all he's this Justice Incorporated goes, all right, we're going to go kill these bad guys. So go kill some bad guys. And instead of being like the professional or like John Cusack in Grosse Pointe Blank, where he studies the person and goes, all right, how do I best kill them and get away with it? He's just like, I'm going to set the dude on fire. If the dude on fire runs at me, we're going to go smashing out of a building into a truck, into a van. That's going to explode. In the case of the ending, I'm going to cause millions of dollars worth of damage to a freeway and multiple cars and a large oil tanker and everything else, trying to get one poor bastard when I could have just snuck up behind him in the lunch queue and hit him with a hammer,
But there is no white yelling chief or black yelling chief, it's usually one or the other, who's yelling at him going, Goddard, you've done it this time. That's not in this movie. He's kind of off on his own. But
there's a reason for that. So in order to spend more money on stunts and less need for a police precinct set or whatever, they have the shouting chief on the voicemail. And it's their way of...
That's true. That's a great scene. Yeah, I think whoever played that voice did a great job.
Yeah. It's their way of getting that scene in the movie. And again, independent filmmakers and low-budget filmmakers take note. if you were going to have, your lead character being a cop, and it's always difficult when they do that in independent films if you don't have a police car or, a precinct or something. But if you're going to have a character, be some form of professional, but you don't have an office space or a police precinct, voicemail or video call or something. Like nowadays, you can just do FaceTime, right? You could have a guy just dressed up as a chief of police with a big mustache screaming at him through FaceTime. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there are ways around it.
And the audio drops out, right?
Yeah, well, that could happen, but back in the 90s, it was on tape, so that was unlikely to happen. But it's true, but that character doesn't reappear throughout the movie. It's one answering machine message, and that's it. That's all you get of the chief yelling at Goddard.
Yeah, and you're not really... the only thing I would say about The Sweeper in terms of the plot is that you're not really told at any point that he's no longer a cop, even though it's very clear that he's no longer a cop. In other films... like Zero Tolerance, for example, where he goes rogue, he was an FBI agent and he goes rogue. There's at least that scene in it where his old partner is saying to their chief, hey, he's one of us. And the chief's like, he's not one of us anymore,
I just remember his name. It's Jeff Douglas, played by Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
I didn't know that top like.
Well, what I like about it, my favorite lines from the trailer are the guy being like, I wish Crazy Jeffy was on our side.
You just kind of figure that maybe, J.I. fixed it with his chief, you know what I mean? So it's like we didn't need a scene where Ed Lauder goes to the chief, said, hey, can Goddard come with us? I guess they figured they didn't need that. There's no time.
Right.
So, they'd rather just go into the next action scene than have another dialogue scene. But you're right. They didn't make that especially clear, but they kind of didn't need to because he was, but see, he's very ambivalent about, if not outright hostile to being in JI. Like, he doesn't really want to be.
Mostly pretty angry most of the movie. So
he's in his house of pain,
Well, he is. He gets brought to a fancy party by Ed Lauter at the beginning of the movie. For Ed Lauter in the middle of the night, I think, right? Isn't he woken up and brought to the party? And for Ed Lauter to pitch him this idea of being part of JI, and Ed Lauter executes a pedophile from an earlier scene in a mall where Howell almost kills a guy for taking pictures of his stepdaughter. And at the end of that scene, Howell walks out of Lauter gives him a bunch of cash, and he walks out of the party kind of scoffing at it all, being like, yeah, right, whatever, kind of thing, like in a very kind of dismissive, cynical way. The next thing we see is a cab pulling up at his new swanky house that the JI has bought him and equipped with sports cars that we never see, which is really weird. But, you've got 3 sports cars, and he throws down one set of keys, and then we never see any of them. And a whole tabletop full of guns. So suddenly C. Thomas Howell has a whole new life, even though the previous scene he's very scoffy and dismissive about this JI thing.
Well, it's true. In fact, he even tries to give back the money, if you remember. He brings the money to the party and tries to give it back to Ed Lauder.
Yeah.
They don't really make it clear if he actually gives it back or he keeps it. But yeah, maybe they're just trying to sweeten the deal. But it could be because, a part of the plot is how, Ed Lauder keeps stringing him along saying, you do one more job, I'll tell you the truth about your parents.
Yeah.
So it's very Lucy in the football. You do it one more, just do it one more time. I think that Goddard is kind of wise to that. So the reason why he's staying in JI for so long is because not because he likes it, but because he's using it to get to the truth about his parents. It could be argued, maybe.
And just going back to finish the point that I was saying earlier about how often PM characters, as grumpy, bad, or murderous as they are often defined by the people around them. The one through line that kind of keeps your faith in Howell, I guess, or at least you liking him begrudgingly, despite him being such an irascible, violent murderer, essentially, throughout the film, is that he clearly loves his ex. She was his crush, as we find out in the flashback, where his grandmother comes to the hospital while he's lying in a coma to essentially embarrass him and be like, look, I brought your crush. You're like junior high crush with me. But you see him give the money to her. You see him, there's a few montages with him and his boy. You can tell that he's sort of broken up about not being with her anymore. And that's what gives him his humanity. It's like the dog in John Wick gives John Wick his humanity. You know what I mean? Like, and then you'll see this later, like in Pure Danger, for example, the C. Thomas Howell movie that he directs. All the bad guys are unnecessarily and horribly racist, just to make sure that everyone is aware that it's not that they're doing bad things, it's just that they're so horribly racist. You're like, well, these must be all the bad guys. Very often they'll find some kind of quick script thing that'll make you go, okay, he's a good guy because he gave money to his ex-girlfriend or whatever. Oh, he's a bad guy because he's unnecessarily racist. Like, they'll use a shorthand to get you where you need to go. And again, I think that the few time jumps in this movie where, like we say, he leaves the party kind of scoffing at the idea, taking the cash begrudgingly, and then the next time we see him, he's pulling up at this house and away he goes. Do we really need to see all the scenes that go in between those two? We can kind of understand what happened. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to say a lot of that we just don't need. It could be said that he's giving the audience some credit. He's kind of saying, well, we don't need to over-explain everything. The audience can kind of figure out what's going on. You know, we don't need to over dialogue them to death. You know, they probably want to get to the next action scene anyway. So let's just, move things along quickly. And that's what helps the movie be entertaining.
Agreed. Ty, what are your comments on the pier car chase, motorbike, the whole opening sequence, basically?
Oh, another brilliant way to open the movie. And I love the brilliant way to end the movie, too. We get to this thing.
Well, once we get to that, all of a sudden Ed Lauder's in a World War I era biplane for some unexplained reason. But sorry, I don't mean to steal your thunder there.
No, please. No, that's my favorite part, really, was towards the end. It was that massive highway car chase. I love the beginning with the pier. But then you up there right towards the end. It's like,
well, it's funny because, we always talk about the fruit cart car chase, which I think as Roger Ebert famously started, that pier is, as you said, it's as long as they need it to be. It might be the ultimate fruit cart chase. I mean, there's like multiple fruit carts and all kinds of carts.
Well, there's popcorn. I don't know how many popcorn tables they knock off. They knock over several popcorn tables. There's a few fruit carts, and then there's a lot of like Beanie Baby stuffed toy kind of...
They just did everything. That's what's so great about this movie. They did everything.
Yeah, they threw it all in the kitchen sink. And some of the parts of that and some of the other action scenes, it looks dangerous. You know what I mean? It looks unsafe.
I mean, the people that are hitting the hood of that car and in some cases, like, flipping up and flying over the car. I mean, it's... in a Hollywood movie, you maybe see that stunt once, maybe twice. In this movie, in the opening action sequence, it's like 18 people that they mow down.
And because of just the way it's shot, it appears genuinely dangerous. Same thing with the rooftop chase. And they're like at the edge of these buildings, and you can see that, and it gives the audience that like whoa factor where it's like this really looks dangerous, and it's very impressive how they execute that.
Well, in fact, Spiro redoes an action scene from Maniac Cop in this with the jump off the pier. If anyone remembers the end of Maniac Cop, you see what's meant to be Bruce Campbell hanging onto the side of like a Brinks truck, like a Securicorp truck. Yeah. And as it jumps off the pier, you see the stuntman literally having to push himself off the truck or be crushed by it. If he went down with the truck, he'd be dead. So he has to push off the truck. Same thing here with the car. As it goes off the pier, you see the stuntman doubling for Fahey have to literally kick off the car in order not to be crushed by it because they're both going in the water at the same time.
And because if we all remember, the young Mark Goddard is trapped underwater in the stolen car, and he's basically drowning to death before his father saves him. And later in the movie, it's one of the dramatic scenes with his ex-wife, and an exact quote from her. She says, "I can't be with someone who's drowning."
Right. Oh, it all comes back to the trauma.
Yeah.
It all does come back.
So she meant, I'm guessing, more like emotionally, spiritually, physically, but not physically, but it ties back to when he physically was drowning. So to me, that's an example of clever writing.
Oh, and another great independent filmmaking tip that PM give us here. If you want, a character shorthand to explain kind of why he is the way he is, but also to be able to have, like, pad out your running time. You know, you shoot that scene at the beginning, right? You have the action scene with Jeff Fahey and everything at the beginning, and you can flash that back as many times as you want during the movie to show your character having, you know, a tumultuous dream. Every time he wakes up, he's screaming. Even when his the woman from JI that joins him down in, is it Mexico they're meant to be in? Where
Yes,
they do
it's
the
Mexico.
shootout. Even when she wakes him up, he remembers to kind of go, oh, you know, like he's constantly bothered by this dream. Well, that's serving two purposes. A, you can revisit footage you've already used, and secondly, you can give your character, you know, even more impulse or backstory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's you know, getting good bang for your buck, literally.
Exactly.
And last point on the earlier scene, the boy
Yes.
playing young Mark is Max Elliott Slade, and he's famous from Parenthood and Apollo 13 and some other Ron Howard movies for playing young versions or kids of famous people. In Parenthood, he plays the young Steve Martin. However, he is also from the Three Ninjas franchise, the second film of which, Three Ninjas Kick Back, is directed by Charles T. Kanganis, who is also a PM mainstay who directed, wrote, and acted in various PM productions. So it all ties in.
Well, I just watched one of his movies, which is No Escape, No Return. I rewatched it. You know, it's that. Hopefully, I'll be on one of your podcasts soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Excellent.
Is that and that's a Kanganis joint, is it?
It is. Yes. It's a Kanganis joint.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the PM Entertainment podcast so far. I think it's going pretty well, don't you? Anyway, we have a lot more coming up, including some incredible special guests. I cannot believe what you're about to listen to. It is fantastic. Anyway, before then, we do have to pay the bills and make sure we can keep this podcast free, so there will be a few commercials. Then you will hear our special guests, then probably a couple more commercials, and back to the talk about The Sweeper. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to rate and review us, follow us, subscribe, share, like, comment, all that good stuff. It doesn't take a lot of work, it's free, and it does more than you know to support us and get the word out there. Well, it is my great pleasure now to welcome you all to the interview portion of the PM Entertainment podcast. That's correct. I've been going out to a lot of the movers and shakers from PM Entertainment, both in front of and behind the camera, and talking to them all about various different movies, as well as the PM Entertainment process in general. And I hope to present that to you throughout these episodes, as well as occasionally one-off episodes that will be focused solely on sort of the story of PM Entertainment. So that's a very exciting part of this podcast that I hope you will get a lot of knowledge and fun and entertainment out of. So first up in our interview segment, it is my incredible honor to play a clip now from a conversation that I had with none other than Joseph Merhi himself, all about stunts, Spiro Razatos, and a little bit about The Sweeper. So I want you to know that these movies are loved. We study them, we look at them, we love the, you know, I was going to ask about the stunt talents that you worked with. I mean, look at the stunt people you gave careers to. Cole S. McKay and Spiro Razatos and Michael Sana and people like this. These are some of the best in the business, and you gave them the opportunity to do whatever stunt they wanted. They did whatever they came up with, and for their reels or for their interest. You know, we look at you like the Corman School, or like some of these Full Moon, some of these famous production houses that gave actors, directors, stunt people a chance when other people wouldn't. So I think you should be very, very proud of the films you've made.
I am. I still think we're a couple of idiots who just decided to make some movies. We didn't go to film school. We didn't know anything about film school or how to make the movie correctly or something. We just got in and started making it and just had fun doing it. Make mistakes. We laughed. We just had fun and we involved everybody. For example, Spiro who was one of my best friends, like a brother to me. He just celebrated his mom turned 100 years old, and we threw a party. And every stuntman in the world was there at the party. You know, Spiro's like really. I fired him several times. We'll fight, we'll argue, and then he will. Spiro has a vision and a commitment to doing something right and doing it perfect. But we're on a budget. Spiro, one of the movies, I think it was Recoil. He said to me, you know, I've been dreaming about a pipe ram, a car, take it up in the air and take a traffic lights out. I said, oh, okay, great. Keep dreaming. I want to do it. I said, no, you're not going to do it. I want to do it. I don't want to do it. No, I said, it's too dangerous. And how do I know you're going to hit the goddamn traffic light? Everything's going to cost money. Oh, please, let me do it. Let me do it. And he would come at me like, that's when I fired him, because he would come asking me. One time I was doing the movie with Executive Target, and he was doing an action sequence with like 8 cameras. And I'm shooting Roy with Michael Madison, and Spiro's next to me. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to need your camera. I said, what do you mean you need my camera? You have 8 cameras. He goes, yeah, but I need this camera for one shot in particular. You're going to go to lunch, and I'm going to borrow it for half an hour. I said, no, you're not. You're not moving it. I'm not going to be done. I need to shoot that. And he stood next to me, and he said, well, just shoot it. You know, just hurry up, shoot this. I want to shoot. I said, get the fuck out of here. And I started screaming at him. I said, you have a camera. I need to shoot the dialogue. And you want my camera? And he wouldn't leave till he got the camera. And he kept at it with me about the traffic light. And sure enough, he flew the goddamn car and took out the traffic light.
Did you have a fake traffic light, or did you have to get permission from the city to do that, or did he just do it?
No, we didn't tell him. We just replaced it. So whatever it cost, we paid.
Wow.
You know, he took it out. He took the traffic light out. He was brilliant. I mean, we made it. Well, they made it. It's all him, really. But we made it look so easy that the biggest major studios, they will never, I live in Los Angeles right now. We used to have chase scenes everywhere, downtown, everywhere. We just do it.
Yeah.
But the studios can't do that. They want to be responsible. They have safety, insurance. They couldn't do what we did. We were just reckless. I mean, you look at these movies, and Spiro and everybody else, and it's like, okay, there's no big deal. Once PM was gone, and I started working as a consultant for different movies, and I went on these big movies like Jason Statham. You got 100 people. They want to do a car hit. And I'm looking at these guys back and forth. One car hit. It took like 6 to 8 hours, and they do it, and it's nothing.
Right.
When we used to say, oh, we need this guy to hit this car. Oh, okay. The camera's set. Let's go. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, I was talking with some friends last night. We were doing an episode on The Sweeper, the C. Thomas Howell movie, where you have that fantastic sequence with the gas canisters on the back of the truck. Where and I was talking actually about how Spiro's and I know him and Michael Sana both worked on that movie, but Spiro's action scenes or set pieces have a story within them. Like very often it's like A leads to B leads to C leads to D kind of flow, to the set pieces.
Well, that particular scene, John, I was driving on the freeway.
Yeah.
And I'm driving at the freeway, and we started shooting The Sweeper, and that scene wasn't in the movie.
Okay.
And I see on the freeway, this truck has this oxygen, I don't know what they have, CO2 tube, and there was like 100 of them. I said, oh my God, this is going to give us a reason to blow up every single car on the freeway.
Yes.
Let's do that. So I went, and I
was
told
your
Spiro
idea
about it. It was my idea.
Wonderful.
And then his idea was, I said, how are we going to kill the bad guy? Because we chase him, we hit him in the back of the car, we carry the the CO2 and we throw it right inside the car. That was Spiro's idea. We did it brilliantly. And then C. Thomas shoots the CO2 and blew up the car. We blew up. I bought 50 cars for that movie.
So how what we were wondering, because what spurred me to mention it is you saying, when we did a stunt, we just did it and moved on. It didn't take hours and hours. We were hypothesizing, how long did PM Entertainment spend on a sequence like that? Did you shoot it all in one night, or was that over sort of 3 or 4 nights?
No. 1 night.
One night. That's
one
what
night.
See, that's what I said. I said to my friends, it was probably one night.
Yeah. One night. We had the guys, the special effects guys.
Yeah.
Later on in life, I thought it was normal. First of all, the prep for the cars. Each car that is going to flip, we had to have it, ahead of time. There's a cage in it. There's the protection, the proper protection for the, it's been taken care of. That's one. 2, the setup for Spiro, he's brilliant. You drive this way, drive that way. The way they will do it, Spiro will have extras, not stunt people, extras on the highway saying, go 35 miles an hour, you're getting $100 a day, including your car.
Yeah.
Okay. And you go on the freeway on that lane and you don't change. Just go 35. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of the rest.
Yeah.
And then the stuntmen are weaving in and out in between these cars. And then one of the car will be a stunt person who will hit it. He'll go around. And then on that, I don't know, that movie or another movie, Spiro comes in. He said, "Oh, I have an idea. We're trying to get the hero to run to drive away from somebody." He goes under the 18-wheeler, and what? He goes, "Yeah, go under the 18-wheeler and change lane and go disappear behind." I said, "No."
It cuts the roof off the car, right? And then he goes, "Oh, look, a convertible." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another scene.
Oh, that's later on. Okay.
Scene. Yeah, no, So we had, my heart 2-3 times of all the action sequences. My heart is like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this. No, Spiro, I don't want to do this. No, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. You're going to be, And then who does it? I think it was C. Thomas Howell's dad goes in this little car.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was like 60 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm 71 now. At the time, I said, "He's an old man. Why don't we give him a big Lincoln, Mercedes, or something? Old Mercedes. It protects it." No, he likes little cars. He's rolling better. And boom, it's crazy. And then we had a fight on. Okay, you have to remember, John, we don't have computers. We didn't have green screen.
No, I know.
We didn't have nothing. Everything you saw happened.
Oh, that's why we love them. That's why we love those movies. You have a fight on a plane at the end of that movie with a real life fall from a plane that seemingly went on forever. And the sequence I was going to talk to you about, actually, because I think it's a combination of 3 things that work so well together, and that is the sequence with the foot chase and the final strangulation on the roof.
Oh my God!
The one thing I wanted to say, Joe, is first off, that scene is directed so well. Like the shots in that scene, the direction in that scene, it's so well. And it's funny you talk about sort of having your heart in your throat with all these car wrecks. When I watch the movie, because I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm not a big fan of heights. When I watch that movie, that sequence, really, that's when my heart's in my throat. And the fact that C. Thomas Howell is there doing it himself, like he's hanging off the edge of that building to some extent, and then you have the stunt man perform that incredible stunt at the end where it looks like he's been hung. To me, it's the perfect combination of your direction, a star who wants to be involved, a star who wants to be part of the action, and then your incredible stunt team all working together to create a real breathtaking sequence.
And that is like 3 or 4 hours. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, 30 years later, you look at, didn't even think of the strength of that stuntman, strength of somebody who can pull himself up. There is no safety underneath. There is nothing.
Yeah.
all he had, he had like a chest protection, one of those things you wear on a motorcycle,
Uh-huh.
and then the fake rope is on his neck,
Yeah.
and the actual rope is hanged to the chest where he falls. That stops him. But even falling and stopping it's amazing. It's amazing. It's all thanks to Spiro. Spiro coordinated all these things, and then we're only shooting on one roof, and Spiro said, I think it will be time, John. It will be time where we walk in. I forget which one. It was a Gary Daniel movie. It was a chase in the parking lot, and then Gary Daniel comes out. The car comes out of the 4-story building of a parking lot, goes in the street, and so we come to shoot in one street, and they said, "Oh, we couldn't get a permit to shoot in that street. We're not allowed to shoot in that street." I go to Spiro, and I said, "Spiro, we can't shoot the chase." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We can." He said, "What are we going to do now?" I said, "We got to shoot the chase in the parking lot." He said, "What?" I said, "In the parking lot. We have this parking lot. All the cars are here. Just fucking shoot." And he came up with all that chase in the parking lot. It's in the parking lot.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Okay, one last thing I just want to tell you.
Oh, please.
Why these people are just, they give their heart and soul into this movie. They're all movie lovers. They're all filmmakers. They all get the opportunity to create their own way of doing things. It wasn't like a dictatorship. I'm the director. What should happen is I'm the producer. You do this. It was like a group effort. Said, okay, we need to do this. What do you think, guys? Okay, let's do this. Let's do that. How about this? The caterer can have a good idea, and next thing you know, they're directing a movie.
Yeah.
So
and it's how it should be. It's such a collaborative art form. One person can't make a film, so it's
That's the word I was looking for, except I still can't master the English language after 50 goddamn years.
Well, that was fantastic. I mean, my goodness, what an absolute treat to talk to Joseph. And you will be hearing more of that interview laced throughout the PM Entertainment podcasts as the content demands it. But coming up now, a brief section of the conversation that I had with, and I cannot believe that I got to speak to him because wow. From his early days working in stunts on well-known movies such as The Goonies to doing stunt coordinator work for Bill Lustig and the Maniac Cop franchise to working with Joseph and Rick over at PM Entertainment to breaking free from the B-movies and making it in the A-list with the Fast and Furious franchise and several Marvel movies. It is my absolute joy to introduce to you a clip from an interview I have done with Spiro Razatos, stuntman extraordinaire, Hollywood heavyweight, and has either done stunts or stunt coordinated some of my favorite films of all time. This was a fanboy moment like I can't explain. So here is some of my conversation with Spiro Razatos.
Once you get pegged for low budget movies, nobody wants to let you know to be in the big budget movies. And in our careers, there's only been two people that really have been able to break from the low budget to the big budget, and it's me and Dan Bradley pretty much. And it was almost an impossible deal because what happened is I had shot, tons and tons of big chases, as you saw on Sweeper and Riot and Rage and all these movies, and nobody knew about them. Nobody would look at them. Nobody saw them on the studio end, So it was easier for a guy that did Silence of the Lambs, which had hardly any action except a little fights and all that. He would be able to go get an interview on a studio movie, and me, who had done 100 action sequences, couldn't even get an interview. Nobody would even talk to me because I was ready to do the studios. I wanted to do the studios. And so I had to trick my way into the studios. What happened is a friend of mine was close with Michael Bay and did a lot of Michael Bay stuff. And Michael Bay never had second unit. And when he was doing another movie, he said, can you go and work with Michael Bay? Because he knew he could trust me to help him set up stuff and all that. So Michael first said, well, who is this guy? I don't want this guy. And the guy said, trust me, please just have Spiro help you. So he gave in. He had me help him. And it turned out that there was a chance to do a couple of days of second unit. And I kept saying, Michael, please. And I knew that here's the problem. You could direct one day on a big studio picture and you'll get a credit as a second unit director. And I could direct, like I said, 100 sequences and nobody cared on the studio end of it.
Right.
So I said, Michael, let me just, and he goes, nope, nobody shoots second unit. I am the only one that shoots. And I said, Michael, please, you don't have the time. I could get you some pieces. So I finally begged him to let me shoot a couple days, knowing that that's all I needed on my credit. And then I would send him footage. I'd send him the stuff I could get to him that he didn't have time to get. So he finally gave in and let me shoot some second unit for him, which were important big pieces eventually, because he saw that I could do some stuff. And so he trusted me. I went and shot, part of the big causeway sequence, one of the most famous sequences he's ever done, with all the cars coming off the car carriers. Well, I shot, like 4 days or whatever for him, important gags, but only a fraction of what he did. And it won an award, and I was able to put it on my credits as second unit director for Bad Boys, and that opened the door for me, and the rest is history. So it's sad what, sometimes how the business works, but I had to eventually play the Hollywood game. So what happened with PM is, I guess they were doing a movie in Vegas, and, they had the guys low budget, everything was down and dirty, and they hired a stunt guy, Bob Brown, who was the double for the guy on Terminator, the bad guy, I forget the guy.
Robert Patrick.
And they hired him because I think he was in the movie or whatever. So that was like their first taste of the big Hollywood. And they hired him only as a stunt guy, but I guess he helped out or whatever. And Joseph said, you know what? I need to take my movies to another level. So he said to Bob Brown, hey, will you, do our next movie? We want to go to the next level and, to our movies. And he said, listen, I can't do it, but the right guy for you, perfect guy is Spiro. So it was really nice of him to recommend me. So Joseph calls me in and we make a deal. Obviously I had to adjust because of the budget. And I did a pay or play with him because that's one thing I always do. Because if I'm going to not do other jobs, they got to at least do a pay or play. So the big sequence that I shot first was still one of my favorites, was when the armored car going through the freeway, the guy rolling out the back and dragging him on the freeway. And, it was a big thing. Motorcycles jumping, cars flipping, cannons. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
It was a big sequence. And so I was shooting it, and I remember I felt good about it. I never get confident or excited, but I didn't feel there was a problem in what I was doing. I felt I was doing what I always do. And I remember Joseph wasn't like excited. He just didn't say much. And then after I finished the sequence, what I heard happen behind the scenes before he called me into his office was, I guess he didn't understand my dailies and he thought that I wasn't getting the stuff that he was hoping he'd get. So he went to the editor and said, listen, Spiro stuff is not working. It's this. He goes, pull out all footage from other movies and put together a sequence to make this work. And the editor goes, wait a minute. He goes, give me a chance with Spiro stuff. I see stuff that's working. And then Joseph goes, no. It's not. It's not going to work. Find footage from old movies of ours and put a sequence together. And so he told that to the editor, and two things happened. The editor, thank God for me, did not listen to Joseph and decided he would make a crack at editing the sequence. Okay?
Yeah.
So he didn't listen to Joe, and he edited it with just the footage I shot. But in the meantime, Joseph calls me into his office, and because he was sincere, he said to me, listen, I don't think I got what I was hoping to get, for the money I spent, because, he spent more than he's ever spent to hire me, but I also, took less than I normally do, but it was a give. And he just said, you know what, there's not big action. I'm going to let you go and have somebody else that I could afford finish the movie. Now, I had a pay or play, so I could have said to Joseph, hey, Joseph, you still got to pay me because I didn't take any other show, but I didn't. I felt bad, and I just believed he was sincere, and I just couldn't understand why he felt that way, and walked away without asking for the rest of my money. And in the meantime, the editor cut the sequence, and obviously once everybody saw it, they told Joseph how much, the show's gone to another level, this, and I guess it was very successful. And so then the rest is history. I've been best friends with him and done all of his movies since then. He tried one other time to do the same thing, but it never worked because, he just, there's been some, a couple funny stories where he's tried to stop me from shooting a stunt, and then I had to do it, sneak it and all that, and he's probably told you some of those. But we've had a pretty crazy and wonderful relationship. But yeah, so he fired me, and then all of a sudden they cut it, and then I've done every movie since then of his and been his friend for 30-something years now, whatever it's been.
So your first big sequence with PM Entertainment that actually ended up in the movie was the armored car sequence, the sort of the second car
on
chase.
The Last Man Standing.
In Last Man Standing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But real quick on the sweeper, we did that pier sequence, and we had more car hits, I think, than any other movie has probably ever done up until John Wick just did on their show, you know? So that's another thing. Think about it. 30-something years ago, on $1 million plus whatever budget movie, and we've got, like 30 car hits and people flying off the pier and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that pier sequence at the beginning of The Sweeper is absolutely incredible. It's got that laughable thing about the fact that the pier is probably about 30 miles long if at those speeds.
It's no different than the Fast and Furious when they're on the airport with the airplane and chasing that, and that was actually 70 miles long.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The longest airport in history.
Yeah, that goes on forever. But no, you get completely embroiled in it. You suspend belief and you enjoy the sequence because it's so well done. But yeah, you hit multiple tables and multiple people. I mean, yes, like you say, what was it, like 20 people or something, 25 people or something that roll over that car.
Yeah,
and then you do a similar stunt from the end of Maniac Cop 1.
Maniac Cop. That was me also doing that stunt. That was me at the end of Sweeper. I'm the one who went in the water.
Yeah, you had to kick off, in both cases, you had to kind of kick off the vehicle so that the vehicle didn't hit you. Like in both cases, that's an insane stunt. So.
Yep, and even though I was directing that sequence, I kind of wanted to do it, again, and that's the stuff that made it worthwhile to work with Joseph, and the guys had a good time, and anytime there was a scene. When we did the pier sequence, one of the stunt guys did something really stupid back then. He took my stepson and threw him off the pier, being silly, in the water, of course. But, it was like that. It wasn't the smartest thing for him to do, but he was trying to have fun. So because of that, Wardrobe had a clown outfit. So I made him wear the clown outfit to do the car hits. So I said, well, you're wearing a clown outfit so people can get pictures of him looking like a clown.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what I like to do, and I still do that today.
Yeah, there must be, I guess, working within a stunt team like yours that as you explained at the beginning, you've kind of kept for years and years and yes, added on to and so on. But there must be this incredible camaraderie, great stories, everything you've been through. It must be almost like having your own little platoon or something.
If there's anything I could walk away from in my whole career, that is it. That I am with the same people I was back in the 80s. It's the same people, look, I have the same editor, the same DPs, the same stunt people, all those people, camera operators, they're all the same people that we've been together my whole career. They're the reason I'm here. I do things so unorthodox. When I tell people to turn right, I mean left. And the next time I tell them to turn right, I mean right the next time. So they know when I say that, how to figure out my crazy ideas and language. And so we've been together. I've lost jobs. I've fought for jobs. I've taken pay cuts so that I could keep my team together. And so that's been a big part of my life and career. And, I'll never let that go.
When we're talking about like building sequences, I think the other one that jumps out to a lot of people, and I think Joseph even mentions this. In fact, he mentioned this when he was being interviewed. Is the hanging sequence in Sweeper with C. Thomas Howell, and again, the way you put those actors into those stunt sequences, it's really believable. I mean, especially with C. Thomas Howell. He sat there on the edge of the building. The camera is up high. He's smoking a cigarette at the end of the sequence. You buy fully that he's really there because, and look, I don't have a fear of heights, but I'm not dangling my leg over a building and hanging out and whatever like he did. So fair play to him. But yeah, talk about the Sweeper hanging sequence. That's, I mean, again, all in camera, all for real, just incredible.
No, that's actually one of my favorite moments. Because it was something, not cars. I love actually shooting stuff that's not cars more than I do cars because I've done so much of the cars. And I have a hard time getting people to, like, you let me do it. And then one of the movies I did that I got a lot of acclaim for, when people like, who did this? And it was like Spiro. I was like, wow, was like Skull Island, King Kong.
Yeah.
I shot all the action, even shot actors and shot all this stuff. And there was no cars in it, helicopters and King Kong and all that. But anyway, so doing that hanging, the whole idea of that was to get that shot looking down, because to me it's like a guy's risking his life. He's taking out the bad guy, and he's risking his life, and he's taking the audience for a ride at the same time. So that's what that whole thing was about. It was like, because what my number one goal in anything I do as a director, action director, is the first thing is what is going to get the audience. I want to get the audience to like what I do and feel it.
Yeah.
So whenever I get excited about something, it might not be the biggest, it might not be this. It's not about getting my demo reel or this. It's about the audience will remember this or it'll leave an impression. And to this day, I have to fight I know one of the questions about a Fast and Furious, but to this day, even on the last Fast, I have to fight the director when I come up with an idea, and he looks at it and goes, no, but I have a feeling about it. I have a feeling that, no, we have to do this. The audience will remember this or like this.
Of course. The sequence in the Sweeper with the gas canisters, I know Joseph told me a little bit about it, but did you have anything to add to that sequence? Just because, again, another kind of standout.
Well, did you notice what's the biggest thing that is like a mind-boggling? Nobody would ever do in a movie, ever. You would never see this in a movie. It's the most blatant thing. Here's the thing. For that sequence to work, it had to be done at night to see the explosions and all that, right?
Right.
It's the only way that sequence could work, right? Or it wouldn't have half the impact without all the cool fire and stuff, right?
Right.
Do you remember you don't remember what's wrong with that sequence, do you?
No, I don't. And I watched it literally
it's
a week
amazing.
ago.
It's oh my God. Then I don't know how we got away with it, because we got away with murder.
Yeah.
The 30 seconds before he goes outside to get in the car at night, it's broad daylight. Literally, it's broad daylight. We're doing a shootout in broad daylight at noon.
Yeah.
And then he goes outside and it's midnight in 30 seconds, not even in 15 seconds. So to make it, people forget about it and it work with you, that's why he goes down these steps. We had him going down the stairwell longer than you ever would. Like normally you go down some steps for 5 seconds, 7 seconds, and you're out the door.
Right.
He went down these steps for like 20 seconds to help buy time that it went from noon at night to midnight. We don't notice.
We don't notice it at all. No.
It's unbelievable, because when you look at it again, you go, oh my God, literally broad daylight. And then, 10 seconds later, it's midnight.
Right.
So that's what Joseph would do. He knew that the audience wanted to be entertained. So if it would make a big impact to do it at night instead of daytime, then he didn't care if we did that.
No.
And, that sequence was cool because I thought, and of course, I looked at it again, and that's one of the few sequences that we definitely shot. The guy must have shot 10,000 rounds.
Yes.
in his gun, and that's one that definitely went on too long after seeing it again.
And he's an incredible
ones that
shot,
didn't-
considering he's driving along and just sort of occasionally spraying bullets out the back window. He's a great shot. Hits those canisters every time.
Yeah. Well, that's why we gave him a machine gun.
Sure.
We figured with a machine gun, he could afford to miss.
No, understood.
But
Yeah.
when I looked at the semi sequence, the bus sequence on the beginning of Rage or early on, during Rage, that to me was like, it didn't feel like, it was long, but it didn't feel like over and over as much as the CO2 sequence. But, I guess back then people, they want to be entertained, so we gave it to them.
Oh yeah, the more explosions, the better. And the fact that you were able to, I understand from Joseph, I think that you were the one that put the button on it. You were like, well, we'll have a canister. We've already established early on in the chase that the canister can hit his car or whatever. We're going to have the canister bounce up onto his hood. He's going to drive up behind his car. He's going to nudge the canister into the back of his car, and then C. Thomas Howell will shoot the canister, and that's how the bad guy will blow up. And my understanding is you kind of put the button on that. That was your idea.
Yeah. And that was, after looking at it again, that was my, that made me feel like, wow, that was kind of a clever idea back then,
Yeah.
I thought it was a good way to tag it and make it personal, where he could look at the canister, look back at CT, and it just made it personal. And those are hard to find a lot of times, where you have the moment where you have those close-ups that you can go back and forth for enough for the audience to just say, yeah, he's going to get his,
Oh yeah.
And those are great moments with a big gag.
So there we go. A little bit with Spiro Razatos there about the PM Entertainment films that he made, as well as some in-depth stuff about the sweeper stunt sequences. Now we go back to the regular conversation about the movie with Ty and Brett from Comeuppance Reviews. Don't forget to check out their blog. And also don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, rate, review, all the free things that you can do to support both our podcast and ComeuppanceReviews.net. That would be awesome. And we're just going to have a couple more commercials and then back to the conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for supporting. And we do hope you'll become a regular in these parts.
Ty, I know there's something you wanted to mention about the mall scene.
I love the bit where you can see the Virtuosity poster, because that's my favorite movie.
Nice.
And it's there's a lot of 90s-ness to it. So if you have a 90s nostalgia, this movie should hit the spot for you, because for a lot of different reasons. But the Virtuosity poster just in the mall, after they go around the corner from a Sbarro, and there's a scene which we haven't mentioned yet with I can't remember her name, but the woman who meets Goddard at the bar and kind of
Cinda
takes
Williams.
Cinda Williams. She says, my son watches Power Rangers all the time, and he's eating cereal, and this cereal's up to $6 a box. And
that whole Cinda Williams scene, and it'll follow on in C. Thomas Howell's directorial film Pure Danger. It clearly someone around PM, or maybe it's Thomas Howell himself, big fan of Tarantino, because that is, if ever you wanted to learn, a lot of people praise Tarantino, and I'm not going to dismiss him. He has a place in the world, and I understand why people like him, and I certainly liked him growing up, and I get it. The After Movie Diner, my first show, is named after a concept from True Romance. So, I'm as much a Tarantino cinephile as anybody. But the fact that PM Entertainment proves in this short scene about cereal that a hooker who's not really a hooker, who's set up by J.I. in order to entrap him into joining I didn't really understand what she was doing, but there's a whole scene where she talks about cereal and the difference between honeycomb cereal and Cocoa Puffs, and he's like, I'd fuck with some Cocoa Puffs or something, and you're just like, it's straight out of like a Tarantino movie where two criminals are talking about something completely unrelated.
That scene clearly had a Tarantino influence. I think there's no question.
But it shows how easy you can imitate him, is what I like about it. Because it's really effective. It's a really effective, well-written scene.
If you could come up with some pop culture dialogue that does absolutely nothing to move the plot along, then you're kind of in Tarantino territory.
Ty, you were saying about the mall earlier. The only thing that I am sad about is that it's not the mall from Rage where they had a PM Entertainment video store.
Yes,
where
it was the greatest thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a video store.
Ty, every time I see Rage, I go, I just want that as a video store. I just want to be transported back to be able to buy any tape in that and poster in that video store.
It just seems so real. I mean, when the movie please be real.
Yeah, do we know that that's not a real video store? Or
well, mainly because they trash it, so I'm guessing it's not a real one.
All right, well, maybe not.
And that every movie in there and every movie poster is PM Entertainment. I think one more overall thought I have about the sweeper is the clothes that C. Thomas Howell wears. And if you watch the C. Thomas Howell movies that he's in for PM, certainly this and Pure Danger and The Big Fall, there is a lot of interest in his wardrobe. I feel like in each movie he's paying a lot of attention to his wardrobe. But I wonder if the sweeper, because his outfits are outrageous. I mean, they're so bad, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you ever want, like, when people go, oh man, I wish we could go back in time. If you watch The Sweeper, you'd go, nah, it's okay. I don't need to go back in time when grown men were wearing beads, some kind of tooth around his neck, T-shirts with leather waistcoats over the top of them. At one point, a denim jacket with no sleeves, a multitude of bandanas and hats and things, none of which suit him. At one point, he's all Matrixed up to the hilt, even though this was a couple of years before The Matrix, wearing a long black leather coat and sunglasses and whatever. I mean, there's no 90s stone unturned when it comes to Hal's ridiculous outfits. Ty and Brett, your commentary.
And also, if we're talking about the 90s, he had that kind of goatee type thing.
That bad goatee beard,
which it's like just around your mouth you have hair and nowhere else.
I believe it's called a Van Dyke. As Kevin Smith likes to educate us on the Chasing Amy commentary, he says it's not a goatee, that would just be chin hair. If it has a mustache as well, it's commonly known as a Van Dyke.
That style was very big in the 90s, and of course, Howell has that. So I think to show that, once again, he's troubled. He has a tattoo. Don't forget about it's like a skull and crossbones, I believe.
Right.
And all the sunglasses he wears, which kind of have like a downward slant to them, so it kind of looks like he's angry when he wears the sunglasses.
I like how you're reading very deeply into everything that happens in the movie.
Yeah. So that's an expression of his attitude and, once again, his past trauma. So,
Brett, are you a psychologist or therapist in your day job by any chance?
No, I'm not. I just play one on a podcast.
Okay.
But I guess I would say that there's more to these movies than people think if they take the time to look at them.
There's deeper meaning.
I guess my last couple thoughts would be, as far as the action, you had all these very, very excellently staged scenes. But once it gets to that scene with the rolling propane tanks, I think that's when it achieves what I would call action genius.
Yes.
It's like, okay, now we've reached to this transcendent level where it's like, okay, this is actually like genius level action. So I think it reaches that level in that one scene. And also, if you watch the show The Shield, I think this kind of prefigures what happened on The Shield by a good many years.
I think it also sets up a very tough task that actually it succeeds on. And that is, well, hell's bells, if this action scene with the gas tanks is 35 minutes in or 40 minutes in or whatever it is into the movie, what the hell are they going to do for the final sequence?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because this would be the end sequence of any other movie,
Well, but that's PM for you.
Right.
Yeah, when I ran in the middle, I was like, okay, so how can they top this? And they kind of did.
Yes, they do. They land a plane on a freeway and drive several cars through an oil tanker.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that. And the car
and there's just some like skidding, crashing, flipping cars just thrown in for good measure.
Of course. Well, there always is. That you can't drive down a highway in a PM Entertainment movie without ramping at least 4 random junker cars. In fact, at one point, I think there's the Bronco towing the boat with the explosion and flip. Yep. That's fantastic. Towards the end of the gas canister falling from the truck, chase, there is a car flip, and then another car ramps over that car that was just flipping. All the while, both cars are on fire.
I mean, do you think about the work and time this must have taken? I mean, I know you were saying they didn't have a lot of time, but still, I mean, to even think of this and execute it.
Well, they filmed that in one night. They will have filmed that in one night. That's what's insane. A Hollywood would take maybe a week to film that. They probably filmed that in maybe 2 nights, but I'm betting probably one night.
Right, because it's kind of like do it and get it done quickly, and that probably is partially responsible for the results that you see. You know, it's they're not laboring over every little detail. They're just gunning it. They're just going for it, and it's great.
It looks like beyond scary. All these nonstop explosions.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible what they get away with. And then of course during the end sequence, Grandma also you mentioned earlier, Brett, that Grandma says, you know, your dad was really a good cop, and dispatches a bunch of wisdom that C. Thomas Howell really could have used about 2 weeks before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if anything, the message of this movie is visit your grandma more often because she has all the knowledge.
Right.
And if
she offers him some lemonade, which he doesn't take.
Well, he doesn't take anything. He doesn't want to take anything from anyone.
Right. And, see, I'm rubbing off on you, John. I think that's
he's cynical even about grandmother's lemonade. I mean, come on, C. Thomas Howell. There is a moment where you can let your guard down, and that's with Granny Dearest. Come on now.
I know, because I'm trying to think there's ever been a moment in my life when someone has offered me lemonade and I said no, and I really don't think there has been. I think if someone offers it to me, I always just say yes.
Yes. But no, go see your grandmothers more often. That's the message of the entire movie. Because she comes through with the knowledge that could have helped Hal way before he murders hundreds of people. She also says that both him and his father were good cops. Again, I would disagree with that. They are not. Neither of them are good cops. They both seem to be needlessly aggressive, have a lot of mental health issues. Because even before we learn what we ultimately learn about Jeff Fahey, he's driving down the road with his son in the back of the car, saying, like, you know, I want my kid to be a cop, and he ain't watching no Sesame Street. And like, you know, I bet your kid gets bullied at school, and you've been bullied into buying your wife a stupid car because your wife's stupid and you're stupid and cars are stupid. You know what I mean? Like, he's already a deeply miserable guy. You know what I mean? His wife, who has nervous anxiety like you wouldn't believe, he just has a phone call. And the moment he hangs up from the phone call, this woman is about to go into, you know...
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
The fetal position because of how anxious she is.
Yeah, but it's interesting that is the first scene of the movie where they're kind of setting out their stall there, and with his philosophy of life. Right. You know, with the Goddard family.
The Goddard family crest is like, shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah, it's like a fist punching someone in the face, and a gun, and an exploding gas car in the background.
And if you come across a pedophile on which you have actual evidence, like they have physical evidence, this is a slam dunk case. No, throw his face into a mall pillar and stamp on him several times in full view of hundreds of people. That's the way you are a good cop. You know what I mean? I mean, what an idiot. Anyway.
Well, and also another TV show that this kind of reminded me of a little bit is Dexter. Because you know how Dexter kind of works on the outside of the law to get the bad guys that slip through the justice system. It could be that Dexter, the makers of Dexter, watched The Sweeper as well.
I well believe it. I well believe it. So we finished the movie. We have a shootout at the J.I. Mansion, the Justice Incorporated Mansion, with Hal versus Lauter. Lauter, again, there's a weird bit where Lauter pretends to be hiding in the car, then jumps up and drives off. And instead of just stepping out of the way of the car, Hal leaps up onto the hood. Then it becomes a car chase. During the car chase, that's where we see the Bronco towing the boat, explosion, and flip. We see several crashes. I mean, no one on this freeway can drive, mainly because Hal and Lauter are, you know, careering through all of them. But there are several crashes. Then there's a huge pileup into a tanker explosion. Hal then drives through the explosion, removing the roof of his car in the process, which makes him very happy that he now has He has a
Yeah, he even says, cool, convertible.
cool convertible.
Yeah.
We get that great shot of the car driving through the fire and then Hal popping up in the front seat. It's so cool. I mean, it's such a great thing. Then a plane that Lauter has managed to call on a walkie-talkie that he just happens to have. As if this plane is constantly flying around just in case Lauter needs picking up and dropping
Right
something.
where he happens to be at that moment.
Right.
He has it he has it ready. It's like,
Yeah.
I love that.
So the plane lands on the highway, picks up Lauter. Hal gives chase. Hal jumps from his now, and this is the reason why he needs a convertible, is so he can just stand up on the car and grab the wheels of a biplane that's flown down onto the highway. He climbs up the plane. Again, this is all done for real. We see a stuntman in midair climbing up a plane. There's no CGI, no nothing. It's all done for real. Lauter looks hilarious in his flight cap. They have a little scuffle on the plane. You know, and if you think about it, like even Indiana Jones, I'm thinking of Last Crusade, like when there's a plane sequence, it's all, you see like the line around it. It's all either back projection or blue screen or whatever. Not here. This is all done for real. Again, obviously Hal and Lauter are filmed against a blue sky, probably on the ground with some people like shaking the plane to make it look like it's in motion. But it's still a lot more effective, I think, than blue screening it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it looked pretty good for what it is. It's like
It really does.
Yeah.
And we did kind of touch on this before, but we probably should tell the audience this plane we're talking about isn't exactly Air Force One. This thing it looks like Snoopy and the Red Baron are going in the Southwest.
It's a bright
Camel.
orange biplane. I think I'm right in saying it's like a biplane, right?
Yeah.
A two-seat biplane.
Yeah.
it's like that's it.
Yeah.
Which is also the thing for the stuntman. There's no place to hide. I mean, you got this thing's out there in the open, and you got to do it because
Right, and it's bright orange, so
Yeah.
it's not like they can hide wires against it or anything like that. Like, it's pretty crazy. And then it all ends with a huge high fall from the plane, which again is very impressive. So it's a fantastic movie. I absolutely adore it. The last thing, actually, you did touch on this earlier, Brett, and I want to go back to it very quickly. The direction of this movie, I really think that, like, I obviously as I keep watching PM in order and start to kind of really get an overview of every movie that they've done, rather than the sort of 35 that I've seen over and over again, I'll sort of be able to see him progress. But the direction and the cinematography, especially with the rooftop chase and then this final action sequence on the freeway, is really genuinely stunning. And, some of the camera moves to establish, we talk about economy of storytelling. The camera moves on the roof as they're running along into that corner, and the camera moves up off the roof and goes up over the top. I mean, that's Lethal Weapon, where the guy like jumps off the roof. That's Lethal Weapon level good filmmaking. Like, it looks like a Hollywood movie. It looks really, really good. The soundtrack here as well. It's like a good orchestral / synth soundtrack. It's not the usual kind of PM Entertainment kind of keyboard stuff. It's a really good soundtrack. And there's scenes in this movie that really look phenomenally well shot. And I think the roof sequence and this last sequence are it. Anyway, that's my feeling. Ty and Brett, starting with you, Ty, let's go favorite scenes. Hit us with your top 3 favorite scenes from the movie.
Well, love the car chase with the canisters, of course. You got your World War II Don hat from Ed Lauter.
Yeah.
And you're right. Everything just looks nice and bright, which I really enjoy too. It's not dark. You can see what's going on. The shootout was fantastic before the canister chase. So those are all my favorites. And the beginning.
I mean, the temptation is just to go down the line with the action scenes. Like, the rooftop chase is fantastic. The canisters obviously is incredible. And the pier scene, like, if we were just going to pick out the action scenes, they're all gold. I mean, they're better than a lot of Hollywood action scenes of a similar type. But if I'm going to think of some other scenes, I would probably have to say the when his sister, whose name's Teresa in the movie, is dancing to disco while the family is getting shot.
Yeah, and the shootout at the beginning of The Family is very reminiscent of The Professional, where Gary Oldman goes in and kills all of Natalie Portman's family. And then the whole idea that the bad guy is sort of taunting the son and being like, go on, you pull the trigger and I'm going to give you your shot and all this sort of stuff. It sort of feels a bit like that.
Yeah, I didn't even make that connection. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it shows that, PM, it was a synthesis of things, it was Hollywood things that have come before, but also they're ahead of their time in some ways. Like I said, like the shows like The Shield and Dexter. So yeah, they were kind of synthesizing what came before, but also prefiguring what came later. So it's really the perfect mix of the past, present, and future, I would say.
I completely agree. And to quote Martin Scorsese, of all people, if everyone steals, so steal from the best.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I agree.
Maybe he watched PM movies too.
Oh, 1,000% that Martin Scorsese has like a PM library somewhere in his screening room.
And Tarantino does. I mean, for sure Tarantino does.
Oh, yeah, of course. Tarantino is all over PM Entertainment and probably gets little jollies that he inspired a couple of scenes in the movie. One of my favorite scenes, weirdly, it's one of the shortest scenes, but one of my favorite scenes just because I think it's such a perfectly executed stunt and such a hilarious stunt to happen is C. Thomas Howell goes, he's been murdering all the members of this like drug cabal or whatever, and he bursts into the room of one of them, lights him on fire because he's been poured booze everywhere or whatever, lights him on fire, and then the guy on fire runs at him. C. Thomas Howell goes, oh shit, a guy's running at me while he's on fire, and just dives out of a window, hits a van on the street, manages, even though the guy on fire is right behind him, manages to get out of the van before the guy on fire hits the van, and then the van explodes. It's such a deceptively simple, yet obviously like intricate sequence. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's like Spiro saying, I want to do a high fall while I'm on fire. You know what I mean? He's like, well, how do I do that and then take it to the next level? Oh, all right. I crash into a van and the van explodes. Like it's like adding that little cherry on the cake right at the end. It's adding that little chef's kiss to the otherwise impressive stunt.
That's what all the stunts are. They're all cherry on top.
With a lot of cherries. But also,
cherries.
We went this whole time without mentioning Janet Gunn, who's the actress that plays the female member of J.I.
Oh, yes. The woman from the aforementioned shower sex scene.
Yes. I feel like we should probably at least shout her out because I thought she was good in the movie, and also she was later in The Quest with Van Damme, and she was on Renegade and Silk Stockings and
all the great shows and movies.
Right.
Oh, the number of people who in my favorite B movies of all time ended up either in one episode or several episodes of Silk Stockings is very impressive because almost everyone from my favorite B movies have gone through the Silk Stockings TV franchise.
Well, Ty, you've seen every episode of Silk Stockings.
So it's like the ones with Chris Lorenzo or Rob Estes are better than this one. But,
Of course, she's also in Night of the Running Man, one of the better post Brat Pack Andrew McCarthy movies.
Scott Glenn, fantastic in that.
Okay, well, that was absolutely fantastic, guys. That was a great conversation all about The Sweeper. Lastly, we're going to finish this up with two rankings. I want your ranking within PM Entertainment films, and I want your ranking within C. Thomas Howell movies.
Oh, my God.
If that's at all possible. If it's not possible, don't worry about it. Do either of you know where you would put this in your PM Entertainment rankings?
Ty, you go
for me. Number one.
Really? Number one? Oh.
For PM? Well, it's a tough one. As we mentioned before, Sweeper, Last Man Standing, Zero Tolerance, Recoil. But I think I just loved it. It was my first movie. The first PM movie I ever seen was The Sweeper.
Oh.
So I have a special bond to it. Plus, it was amazing. So it was a perfect start.
I mean, for me, top five for sure. Number one, that's a respectable, choice. But it depends on the day. Like, one day could be Last Man Standing or Zero Tolerance. But but I would say top five if that's an acceptable answer.
And for C. Thomas Howell movies, which I have a lot of them, John. If you ever add your name after a punctuation, it sounds very conversational. But I have 25 of his movies on tape. So It's probably number one again, but I still have I have Kid,
which I just watched. So,
oh, did you like it?
yeah, Kid is.
Yeah.
John, have you seen Kid?
I haven't. No.
You should check it out. I mean, it's not PM, but there is some interesting parallels to The Sweeper because, and this is not a spoiler, but in that movie, C. Thomas Howell's parents are murdered, and he's out for revenge. So,
I imagine that probably happens in a lot of scenes.
Yeah, his parents get killed all the time.
Well, Suspect Device, also a really good movie. You haven't seen that one.
But I mean, for me, it's got to be The Hitcher because.
Oh, good point.
I mean, that's very tough to beat. But The Sweeper's right up there, and I mean, Sweeper, The Kid, and Hitcher really jump out as some of Tommy's best.
I know we almost met him, John.
Yeah, he almost came to Terrificon, but he bailed.
Yep, he was there the previous day.
It's difficult for me because obviously I have been watching a lot of PM lately, and I've been watching a lot of like not the rarer ones, but the less talked about ones like Shotgun and Steel Frontier and stuff.
Good one. The Shotgun of Jones.
Shotgun and Steel Frontier are my two favorite PM Entertainment films so far.
Have you spoken with Brian Huckabee?
Not yet.
Chicken Boy.
He if you go to our review, he actually wrote in and gave a little behind the scenes. If you
nice.
Yeah.
So go to our site and look up Steel Frontier. You'll see that.
So this is how mine shakes out. I have Shotgun and Steel Frontier as joint first. And I know that when you have a joint first, the next one is meant to be the third, but I'm not doing that. We get joint first, Shotgun, Steel Frontier. Joint second is Living to Die, Ring of Fire 3, Rage, and Inferno. And then joint third, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies that would be in joint third position.
Wow.
The Sweeper is one of them.
Okay.
So The Sweeper actually, if you just go from my listing, The Sweeper is in my top 15 of PM Entertainment, and they made over 100 movies, so it's way up there. It's alongside Pure Danger. I might give Pure Danger the edge. I don't know if you've seen Pure Danger, but
no, I haven't. Ty, have you seen that?
A long time ago. I need to get another.
I think it would be. It's difficult, right? Because the action in The Sweeper is so phenomenal, but then the just the weird gonzo mad decisions that Thomas Howell makes in Pure Danger, for my kind of love of film, maybe slightly pips The Sweeper a little bit. So in my ranking of C. Thomas Howell, so it's in my, it's joint third with like a bunch of movies. It's joint third with like The Killer's Edge, The Art of Dying, Zero Tolerance, Guardian Angel, T-Force, Last Man Standing, Pure Danger, and The Sweeper and The Silencers. Those I all give 4 stars to, 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, it's in very good company, I feel like. And in terms of C. Thomas Howell movies, yes, The Hitcher has to be number 1, but then Pure Danger is right behind it, and The Sweeper is probably number 3.
Okay.
With then The Outsiders is number 4. So I'm sorry, Francis Ford Coppola. I do put both C. Thomas Howell as a director and Joseph Merhi above you, apparently, in my C. Thomas Howell rankings.
Wow, Pure Danger. You're making Pure Danger sound really great. I gotta check that one out.
Pure Danger is great. The other thing we don't mention is because he doesn't direct this one, but after this one, they give the chance to C. Thomas Howell to direct a couple. And I love the way PM did that. I think it's such a breeding ground because they said to actors who no other studio was going to give C. Thomas Howell necessarily the chance to direct a movie. They gave him his first chance. Now, he would go on to direct others, I believe. But I believe that PM Entertainment gave him his directorial debut. I think I'm right in saying.
And remind me again, what's it called? The Big Fall. The Big Fall. Interesting movie.
So I'm wrong. Sorry, he made a movie called Hourglass before Pure Danger.
Oh yeah, I have that in my collection.
So maybe they didn't give him his first opportunity, but
The Big Fall is kind of a departure in a sense because it's not a 17 cars blowing up on the highway movie. It's like a film noir.
The Big Fall is fucking weird.
You know, it's like Thomas Howell is doing like a Raymond Chandler type of Philip Marlowe kind of thing.
It's also mad that he goes on to make a bunch of like Asylum style flicks. The next 4 that he directs are War of the Worlds 2, The Next Wave, The Day the Earth Stopped, The Land That Time Forgot, which is, you know, these are all like Asylum style, straight to cable CGI fests, basically, and then the Genesis Code. You know, C. Thomas, as well known as he might be for the Brat Pack and the Outsiders and Hitcher and various other things, he makes his directorial bones squarely in the B-movie world. But I have to say, based on the IMDb rankings, his 2 p.m. entertainment films are his best.
Well, and not just there. I think in our world as well.
Oh, 1,000%. I agree. All right. Yeah. So that brings to an end our wonderful episode on The Sweeper. I can't thank you both enough for being on this show. It is a film that demands to be seen, talked about, and experienced. And I'm so glad that there are other people in the world who feel that what PM Entertainment were trying to do is not only genuinely entertainment, but it's genuinely strong, thoughtful, independent filmmaking where they've gone, you know, how do we have economy of storyline? How do we have economy of budget? How do we have economy of action? Like, you know, they thought it through and made the best film possible, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And if there's anyone out there who hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a while, watch it or rewatch it. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Can't agree more. Yeah, we're lucky you even have this movie. I say it a lot about a lot of movies, but this is another one. We're just lucky to have it. We can watch it anytime.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be on. It's going to be on repeat for me in my little PM Entertainment den. Well, Brett, Ty, we will have you back on the show, no doubt at all. This has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much
you're welcome.
For being on this PM Entertainment podcast episode. We'll see you again down the road. If you give me some ideas, Ty, on Instagram about some of the other PMs that you'd like to cover, then I'll put you on the list.
Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, yeah.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment podcast.